Hello students. The first half of the paper has been done in UPSC, and certain questions, around 5 questions, have been asked from the section of society, and the question level was easy to moderate. But yes, in 15 marker they are expecting you to think on certain lines, and as far as I can see, some questions can be directly done from your NCRTs. But yes, 15 marker require some kind of deep thinking from your side, and especially if you can link, these things with the larger debates happening around. So I'll be starting from question number 20. Question 20 says, does tribal development in India center around two axes, those of displacement and of rehabilitation? Give your opinion. So see, at the very instance, you will find that this question is with respect to, the process of development, displacement, etc. But since they're asking you your opinion from the very start, you can start building such questions in a debate format. So even if you do your NCRTs, there you will find a chapter on tribal development where they have focused this debate vis-a-vis how to go about the development of tribes in India. And this debate is not new. This debate is something which was started during the times of colonial administrators, and it has continued in post-independent India as well. So, in introduction, etc., you can start in such questions which are with a broad framework. Now, what is the broad framework here? With respect to tribal development, there have been two debates in India. Okay. Now, one debate is around anthropologists like Varian Elwin, and other had been the Nehruvian approach. Okay. Now, Varian Elwin, he talks about something like national park theory. Okay. Now, the idea behind national park theory was that, tribal, they need to be kept isolated because, if you encroach upon their locations around their, ecology, it is going to be having an adverse impact on their overall development. So let us keep them isolated from the kind of development that modern Indian state would go on to take. So this is national park theory promoting the policy of isolationism vis-a-vis tribals. Okay. But on the other side, one extreme side, there is one debate. See, now in GS paper, you need not introduce all these scholars. You can simply say that there are three debates on it. One is isolationist debate. On the other end is a assimilist debate. And the mid part, the middle way, is what Indian state actually follows, which is Nehruvian approach, we can say, who gave Panchsheel for tribals as well. And that process or that policy is known as integrationist policy. So that is why you see that in our constitution as well, you will find 5th and 6th schedule. And we have not tried to assimilate tribals. Okay, assimilation, is a deeper integration. It's more like you are expecting tribals to give up on their culture and assimilate with the mainstream society. But in the two extreme approaches, one is Warrior Elwin's national park theory, isolation, and other is G.S. Ghurye. Okay, again in GS paper you are not expected to mention all these names. Now G.S. Ghurye used to believe that tribals are nothing but backward Hindus. Okay, backward Hindus. And therefore, the development process that should go on to take place in modern India, that should try to assimilate tribal population. Okay. So the Nehruvian approach is a middle approach which will promote integrationist approach. Okay, where we are trying to do both. We are trying to protect them, but at the same time we are ensuring their development, but at their own pace, at their own making. And that is why we have provisions like 5th schedule, 6th schedule in the Indian Constitution. Got it? So in such questions, because they're asking you your opinion, you can very well start with all the reigning debates with respect to how tribals would need to be developed. Now, they have mentioned two key terms. One is displacement and other is rehabilitation. Now, as a layman, you can think of displacement in a very narrow terms. Okay, you can only talk about displacement, say in terms of physical displacement. For example, we talk about Narmada Sarovar, Sardar Sarovar Dam, or for that matter, currently the debate is going on with the Great Nicobar project, etc. Now, that is very narrow sense in which you will understand displacement. If you have to elaborate more, because it is 15 marker, you can talk about multiple dimensions of displacement. Okay. So it includes physical displacement, it includes cultural displacement, social displacement, economic displacement, so on, so forth. So you can bring in these kinds of dimensions. Okay. Then you may give some latest examples that how tribal development policies, they have largely led to these kinds of displacements, and obviously if you have some data always helps. Okay, so natural displacement, large scale displacement because of dam building, because of cutting down of trees due to creating new cities, etc., loss of livelihoods, economic, social, political, cultural marginalization, then threat to their language, tradition, etc. Then it can have psychological impact for the longer run, so on, so forth. So this is one dimension. But now when they are talking about rehabilitation, now this is also not a one-time thing. Okay? This is also not a one-time thing. It's a work in progress. Okay. Now, why I'm telling you to look at displacement from or rehabilitation from the larger point of view, because here there is a lot of scope for you to mention all kinds of policies which government of India actually does, and how they try to protect or how they try to balance both the logic of development as well as ensuring protection to the tribal population. Okay, so you could have gone with that how we have a club residential schools, we have Pradhan Mantri One Bandhu Vikas Yojana, we have Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Vikas Mission, then Pradhan Mantri Adi Adarsh Gram Yojana, then how in last few years the budget of Ministry of Tribal Affairs that has increased, etc., etc. So if you start your answer writing, or if you frame your answer in such a manner, giving your opinion would have been very easy. The opinion here, the opinion that you have to support, being as a future bureaucrat, is that India needs development. Okay, India needs development, and the issue is that where tribal population is concentrated, there we have lot of resources, lot of mineral wealth as well. So the adequate demand, or in my opinion, what I feel is that there should be a balanced approach to development, and we should cater to the multiple dimensions of displacements which are taking place, and we need to ensure that the development takes place at its own pace, something of that sort. You could have easily gone with some kind of middle ground here. Got it? So in future also, whenever such questions are coming, the idea is to start with a larger debate, and we ourselves have chosen, made a choice between two extreme debates. Okay, here some data can come very handy, as if like what is their total population in India, and how many groups are there, and uh, what you can use obviously 2011 census data here. So all these things come very handy in dealing with these questions. Okay, so this is 15 marker. This is how you could have proceeded with respect to this particular question. Now, coming back to question number 19, achieving sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection could come into conflict with poor people's need in a country like India. Comment. So see, whenever these questions like comment etc are coming, you have lot of scope to mold this question. Got it? Now, what is the essence of this question? The essence of this question is that, whenever we talk about this key term, sustainable growth, environmental protection. Now, when we say sustainable growth, what thing will come handy to you? You can come up with the definition of sustainable growth development given by Brundtland Commission. Okay, and what they actually say, that sustainable growth means that the present generation, if it is generating, if it is growing, they need to take into account the development needs of future generation. Now, there is a criticism of this concept that, this puts undue disadvantage on poor population. So the moment you see this question, you can actually bring in two dimensions here. Got it? See, one dimension that they are talking about is, because here we are talking about what? We are talking about intergenerational responsibility. This is what sustainable growth is all about. Okay. Another, we are talking about intra-generational needs. You have to balance between the two of them. So this is one debate. Okay. Now, second debate is, and this, they are trying to mix here two things, two broad dimensions in your GS syllabus. One, they are bringing in some aspect of society, but at the same time, they are also bringing in environmental concerns and the debate which are going on in the environmental issues. So, second debate here is global north versus global south debate. Okay, global north versus global south debate. Now, again, they are asking you to comment. So, there is no requirement as such that you pick just one side. Okay, why? Because the definition of sustainable development itself demands you to go for environmental protection, growth, but at the same time, social inclusion as well. So, this is like a juggling thing happening between three different demands. One demand is you have to protect environment. Other demand is you have to also go for economic growth, because our idea is sustainable growth. But at the same time, that growth should lead to, you can say, sustainability, that growth should lead to economic inclusion as well. So, if you are writing this answer, you can, in the introduction itself, you can very broadly bring in this debate that what is sustainable development, but there have been debates with respect to too much burden on or undue disadvantage on the poor population, especially of global south, when it comes to taking responsibility for the historical emissions which have been done by global north. So in this context, the debate still remains whether the idea of sustainable growth and environmental protection is pro-poor or anti-poor. This could have been your introduction. Next paragraph. If you're writing in points, you can just put a subheading that you can say, or you can just show that how this is not anti-poor. So you can tell that sustainable development goal itself talks about ending poverty, then it focuses on reducing inequality, then sustainable idea of sustainable growth itself is to look for what? To look for inclusion, protecting the environment, so on, so forth. So on one side, you can just you cannot agree with the given statement that the idea of environmental protection etc. is bad for poor. Okay, then you can bring in that how in recent times when floods are rising, when urban floods are rising, it is poor which end up getting affected more and more. So you cannot say that the idea of this kind of growth is anti-poor. But come to the second side of demand. Second side of the question is that what happens is that generally when you go for this kind of sustainable growth and environmental protection, it is done generally with the help of 2-3 things. One is adaptation. Okay. Then other is compensation. Okay. Now what is happening is that for adaptation you need technology, and for compensation also you need money. Now these both things are not coming as such from the global north because they are moving away from their historical responsibility. Historical responsibility. Okay, and that is why it is believed that countries in global south, especially countries like India, they do not have any option but to move on the trajectory of growth only, because only growth will ensure that we have enough money to transform India's hinterland, to transform or to change the lives of poor people in country. So when they're asking you comment, this is how you will have to decipher this particular question. So here larger debates are with respect to the definition of sustainable development itself, that how can we punish the current generation for something which is going to come later on. Okay, first thing. Secondly, within that particular debate, there is a debate within global north and global south. And global north, it has gone away with the principles of historical responsibility, common but differentiated responsibility, so on, so forth. But then, having written all those things, you can very well bring in here certain Indian initiatives like International Solar Alliance, like CDRI, etc., so on, so forth. Now, all these initiatives, at the end of the day, they are pro-poor. They are trying to make the trajectory of growth poor-oriented or inclusive of poor population. So even in such questions, there is a lot of scope to give lot of examples, and at the same time, you can also bring or you can also focus on all aspects of debate which are happening in the region. Okay. Now, let's come to the 18th question, which is again a 15 marker. How do you account for the growing fast food industries given their increased health concerns in modern society? Illustrate your answer with the Indian experience. Okay. So here, the key term is growing fast food industries and how they affect health of modern population in modern society. And you have to keep into account Indian experience. Now, if you are taking this question from a narrow point of view, you will simply start writing about health crisis that modern food industry, and when you say modern food or fast food industry, you are basically referring to junk foods. Okay, so you must know exactly what is junk food, how junk food is manufactured, what are the negatives of junk food, so on and so forth. But at the same time, they're asking you, how do you account for the growing? Why this junk food industry or fast food industry is growing like anything? And if anyhow you have some data to present the idea that at what level this crisis is growing, what is the domain of this crisis which is brewing in India, then it will be a very good thing on your part and you can score good marks. Okay, so in this particular question, you have a lot of potential to first elaborate what is fast food industry and why in recent times this industry has grown. Okay, so when we talk about fast food industry, it is generally defined as ultra processed food, which is high in fat, salt and sugar. Okay, fast food क्या होता है? High in fat, salt and sugar. High in fat, salt and sugar, and they are factory made, they are energy dense, and they have a lot of preservatives, sweeteners and emulsifiers which are generally not found in your home cooked food. This could have been your introduction. Then in the next paragraph you could have written about why suddenly worldwide and especially in India there is a rise of this kind of industry, and in fact it is said that today India is considered as a snack nation. Okay, snack nation. So you can bring in these kind of terms in order to showcase how serious this problem is, how big this problem is. Okay, so what are the reasons why people suddenly are more interested? So you can say that there is a change in lifestyle. India is an aspirational society. There's a rise of middle class. There's a rise of transitional areas. There's a rise of urbanization. All these terms which are given in your society very normally, you can use that. Then aggressive marketing which is being done. Then the kind of ingredients which are used in fast food, they actually create your food demand too much. They are highly palatable. Okay, so they use certain elements, food additives, artificial sweeteners, etc., which actually makes your body to forget that you have actually eaten something. Your appetite for fast food keeps on growing and growing, etc. If you are using here key terms like aggressive marketing, etc., you can give examples that how 2-minute Maggie, etc. All these things you have to think, all these things you have to link while writing these answers. Then you can also talk about that how especially in India's rural side, what is happening is that women, it is generally in Indian households, it is women's responsibility to serve food on plate because they go through double burden of not only working but also serving food. Now what happens in rural area, that they do not exactly know the content or the ingredient of instant food that they are serving, and because of lucrative packaging, aggressive marketing and not very heavy on pockets, what has happened in rural side, that it has become convenient for women, especially because they have to go in the fields, they are working as laborer, etc. They end up giving these kind of food to their children. So all these aspects you have to account for showcasing, because they are asking you to illustrate with respect to taking India into account. So in illustration you will have lot of potential to give all these examples. Okay, now once you have moved from here, then you can bring in all kind of health effects which the fast food industry is accounting for. because they have mentioned health issues. So you can tell cardiovascular problems, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, etc. And you can also use a term like silent threat brewing in India. Okay, silent threat brewing in India. This is how you have to account for all these things. Now, towards your conclusion, what you can do here is, you can bring in certain terms like how today's generation is more attracted towards instant gratification, and we have, a high culture of consumption, etc. And because of that, it becomes normal, or it is, it is a societal response to the changing requirements of the society that we are ending up eating fast food. But then what can be done here? So you can bring in certain suggestions. Say, for example, we can you can force these companies not to advertise these things during prime time. Then we can mandate something which is coming from WHO, which talks about front of pack labels, so that people can make an informed choice that how much sugar, salt and fat is there. Then we can tax junk foods heavily, or we have schemes like food park schemes, etc. So can we incentivize these companies so that they can make up healthy snacks for India? Then, for example, Prime Minister has pushed for millets in national year for millets, etc. So can we utilize all these things to nudge Indian population, Indian parents, Indian children, that they can make informed and healthy choices? So in all these questions, you have a lot of scope to link with what government can do or what government is doing exactly. And you can also bring in that how recently Supreme Court has actually asked the government of India that within 3 months they have to come up with a policy to ensure that these junk food, etc. is not reaching in the schools, etc. So all these dimensions, see here, you don't have to do research as such. This is general thing. If you're reading newspaper, you can link all these things. But again, having said that, the crux of the question was they were also asking you to account why suddenly, why even in countries like India, which are still growing economies, there is such an allure for fast food and junk food. Got it? One reason account for is that especially in urban areas, we have quick commerce companies, we have gig economic workers who are delivering everything at your doorstep. So even, under pressure, peer pressure also, urban India is consuming more fast food, more junk food, etc. So all these things you can account for. You can also tell that how in urban areas both partners are working, so due to lacuna of time, due to both partners working, it becomes difficult to go for home cooked meals, etc. All these things you can link here. Got it? Now, next two questions are 10 markers, and they are usual, like, do you think that globalization results only in aggressive consumer culture? Now, in such questions, or whenever globalization comes into picture, you need to first define globalization, okay? And generally speaking, what you can do here is you can use some scholar, ठीक है, इसमें चल जाएगा. So the most appropriate definition which can link you with consumer culture or the term culture, it's by Anthony Giddens, and Anthony Giddens can be used as such. Okay, so Anthony Giddens believed that globalization is the intensification of worldwide social relations that link distant localities in a way that local happenings are shaped by events occurring many miles away and vice versa. Why I'm telling you the social relation? Because then you can go on to link what globalization or how globalization is actually leading to something like aggressive consumer culture. Okay. Now, how does globalization links to aggressive consumer culture? So there are two debates again with respect to globalization. What do you mean by globalization? Globalization means what? Integrated supply chains, Globalization means homogenization of your needs. Globalization means increasing mass consumption culture. Globalization means that you are emulating, simply emulating what others are doing. Rise of social media, rise of OTT platforms, etc. They are directing your needs in a certain direction. Now, this is one debate, that how, because of creation of monopoly in the need sector, in the demand sector, generally we are witnessing something like homogenization of culture, and this homogenization of culture automatically pushes for aggressive marketing, aggressive consumption, and consumption even when you don't need to consume. So on one side this is the case, but at the same time we must know that globalization as a force also leads to development of localization and hybridization. So here you can use example that how Ghibli art, etc., it found a newfound love across the world. Then you can tell that, if on one side uh, the current generation and people, their appetite for Western brands is increasing, but at the same time their appetite for local brands is also increasing. And today there are concepts like slow brew, where you can sit down, read and have coffee, so on and so forth. So somewhere down the line, globalization is like a two-edged sword. It is for us, how do we manage globalization? Here you can invoke Gandhi as well, because Gandhi used to say that you need to keep your eyes and ear open. Okay, you should be adaptable to the changes happening around you. So today globalization is a force. You cannot come out of it. But what you can do is, you can, as a society, you should be able to manage what is happening around globalization. Got it? So this is globalization for you. 10 marker. जितना इसमें आप एग्जांपल्स दोगे, करंट एग्जांपल्स दोगे, उतना ज्यादा अच्छा आपका आंसर होगा. यहाँ पे कोई आपको बहुत ज्यादा deep thinking nahi karni hai. This was a very doable question. Then one question they have asked in marker is, how does smart city in India address the issue of urban poverty and distributive justice? Now what you have to do here is simply link what smart city's mission was all about, what is a smart city all about, and then you have to just bring in the larger format of how they are managing urban poverty and distributive justice. Got it? So here some data can become very handy. जैसे कि या introduction में you can very well start by telling the importance of urbanization, like why urbanization, why something like smart city becomes important. So you can start with something like, according to census 2011, 31% of India's current population, they live in urban areas and they contribute around 63% of GDP. Therefore, urbanization is a natural corollary for poverty reduction and distributive justice. Something of that's what you can start with. Then you can go on to tell, if because they are focusing on urban poverty, you can again bring in the data by World Bank or something, that how in last few years urban poverty has come down. So today urban poverty is somewhere around 17.2%, and it used to be around 43.5%. This is what you can bring in. Next paragraph में आप बताइए what exactly is a smart city. So if you have read smart city missions and what are smart cities exactly, you will automatically analyze that Indian concept of smart city is very different from Western concept of smart city. How West में smart city को केवल data mining और इन सब के लिए माना गया. But in India, what we have focused on, that smart cities have to do more with basic infrastructure, using smart solutions to make infrastructure, delivering services, going for area development, so on, so forth. So this is how you have to define smart cities. Then you can go on to tell what things have been done, what projects have been done, or for that matter, what all thing or what all dimensions have been focused on in the smart city missions. Say for example, ensuring adequate water supply, assured electricity supply, sanitation, urban mobility, affordable housing, IT connectivity, digitization, safety, security, health, education. All these were part and parcel of your smart cities mission. And then if you have, certain case studies to support that, that also can be included here. So say, for example, in Vishakhapatnam, there has been a case study of solar street lights. Then in Solapur, focus had been on e-toilets. This is what? This is nothing but, ensuring, reducing urban poverty and ensuring the principles of distributive justice. Now, when you are concluding, you can either bring in something like, importance of urbanization here, or some statement by Prime Minister where he is emphasizing why do we need to urbanize and why do we need smart cities. So here, like, there is one prominent statement by him that we need skill, scale and speed in order to grow. And in that particular parallels, smart cities become very important to ensure the growth story of India, something of that sort. So for all the aspirants who might be writing next year or who are in the process of preparation, do read newspapers and do read NCRTs. Many questions can be solved from the newspapers data and the basic philosophical background and your conceptual understanding given in basic books. Yes, but for answer writing, you need to think beyond, you need to understand the big picture, the grand picture. Got it? So this year, the questions were lesser as compared to last year, but I think they are very doable question, and the 15 marker are something which are asking you to think more analytically. Simply writing yes, no won't serve the purpose. For that, you will need to be having a detailed analysis or detailed analytical thinking with the debates going on. So that is it all. I'm Rohit Bansal from Shubhra, Ranjan IAS Study, and this was my discussion on your society questions. Thank you. Have a good day. Take care.